Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team Podcast. I am your host, Stephen Negishi, and with me tonight is a dear friend of mine, somebody that who I've known for the last couple of years. He actually gave me and Ken an opportunity to do our own live stream show back in late 2021 from within his own network. And we've kind of branched off a year later to do our own thing. But I've been fortunate enough to keep him in my contact list for the last couple of years. It is the founder, the host, and producer extraordinaire with the Chicago-based the Barroom Network. It is Mr. Aldo Gandia. Aldo, how are you?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Thanks for having me on this iteration of the Double A Team. We at the Barroom Network love to give opportunities to new people to the podcasting field because we want to hear from diverse voices.
Right.
And when you approached me with the idea of doing something from an Asian American perspective, I said absolutely. And
Yes.
you've done a great job. So congratulations to you.
Well, thank you, Aldo. Our network certainly isn't as big, and we've kind of gone through different platforms of recording, and then I figure, we wanted to kind of get our faces out there, as well as our voices to be heard as well. So, the StreamYard, I think, obviously is a great platform to, interact with the guests more, closely, and then have to see the expressions and everything. So I cannot thank you for giving us that opportunity to help us where we are today. Organically, I should say. We're still, making leaps, not bounds yet, but hopefully we will get there eventually. And then, hopefully our platform will continue to grow. But we will always remember where we got our first start, and that's with your network, the Barroom Network. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Well, Aldo, I know you've been, going up and down, health-wise, but I'm very, very glad that you're well enough to join us tonight. So thank you very much once again.
My pleasure.
Let's start by asking, your network, the Barroom Network. Can you give us the origin of your network and how it kind of started and, where it is right now today?
Absolutely. We're actually in our 10th year. After I left corporate America, I did some freelancing work for a year or two, and I just found myself kind of in the same position that I was in corporate America, and wasn't happy with that. So I decided to start a podcast business and doing it more for fun. I was fortunate enough, and with my wife's help, we've got a nice nest egg. So I was fortunate enough to be able to invest in what started first in its first 2 years as a website only with articles. And then we advanced to audio podcasts. And now for the last 5 years, we've been doing video podcasts. So we've grown steadily, some peaks and valleys, of course, as with just about any organization that gets into this type of field. But the most important thing is that all of us who are involved with the Barroom are having fun. We want our voices heard, and so we then, share our thoughts and opinions on sports, primarily on sports, but also on some other topics. We express those. So currently on YouTube, we've got over about 13,000 followers, and on X we've got a little over 14,000, and then Facebook has its share and so forth. But right now, primarily, we focus most of all on just the content and let the numbers be what they are. Not worried about analytics and stuff like that. Just want to have fun.
Yeah, you guys are based out of obviously Chicago, and that me being from Chicago area originally, that's how I got hooked onto your channel, and then obviously eventually reached out to you personally back in 2021, and originally launched our show, and you being a experienced in the host and also producing side, Really helped us launch our show in October. It was a bi-weekly show originally, and it really helped us, put us in the map, and gave us a little, credibility, because we were able to, attract a decent amount of good guests, and that's the, where our original show began, and we were able to use that as a platform to, send it out to our, other guests that we've brought in before. So,
I'll tell you, one of the things that you were, and I would say still are very, very, very good in, is rounding up really high quality guests. When you were at the bar room, and then afterwards, I mean, you had a list of guests that were who's who in whatever field they were from. Excellent work.
Yeah, it is. It's our show is somewhat of a unconventional. We don't just discuss numbers or X and O's. That's not exactly our strength. Numbers, we're pretty good. Because we're Ken and I are both Asians, and we're good with math and stuff. So, but but the X and O's, we're not really good at it. But Ken, as we all know, is the associate editor of Awful Announcing. So, because of that experience, and him always writing on the media platform daily, he brings the unique perspective, and he's also been on different guests on other shows as well. So he brings a different perspective on the media side, and how the media cover things. And you being also somebody who's worked with the corporate America on the public relations and the media side, obviously that kind of certainly resonates with you on how the media on the the local and national and on the corporate level side works as well, right?
Absolutely. Part of the reason that I love to do the work that at the Barroom Network is because it's really something that I've done all my life. When I went to high school, back in the late 1970s, I went to Roberto Clemente High School in Chicago's Humboldt Park, and they had a radio television course. And in my junior year, we churned out tons of radio shows for WBEZ, the public schools radio station. We did drama, we did news shows, we did movie review shows, and so forth. And then in my final year, I concentrated on making films both on Super 8, 16 millimeter, and video. And that propelled me into my career, where I worked for an energy company and was able to travel around the world and shoot movies for them. And then I went to the CBS owned and operated station, Channel 2 here in Chicago, and then went back into the business communications world, where I spent the last 15 years of my professional career. And so that just dovetailed into the passion that I had the absolute most when I was a little kid, was talking sports. I would buy all the newspapers available at the corner store, and I would start with the sports section and work my way to the news, because I just had such a passion for sports. And so I'm really happy in my last few years here working professionally to be able to do sports talk and sports reporting on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, you're certainly have a terrific career in media, and you've shared that story with us, and that it's a great story that your passion, and that you were able to leave the corporate world, and to be able to have a very successful channel that is a must if you're a Chicago sports fan, no matter where you live. And where do you hope to, as you say, 10 years of the Barroom Network? Where do you hope to take this channel moving forward? As long as you can continue to do so, as long as you have the desire to do so.
Yeah, I really don't have goals anymore. I started off the first few, saying, okay, let's get to 5,000 subscribers. Let's get to this, and let's try to make this amount of money. But I just turned 65, and so I'm really kind of in a state of serenity and don't want to add any more stress in my life in terms of
Yeah.
trying to make this number or that number. And so now it's just about the quality of the work. So to answer your question, what I want to do over these next few years is just improve the quality, get better visuals, better audio, better guests, better debates, better conversations on the world of Chicago sports and primarily the Chicago Bears. That's our number one passion at the Barroom. And it's also about trying to give people an opportunity to do a show and to present it to this base of followers that we have. So currently we're looking for a regular show to cover the Chicago Cubs. So if any of your followers out there are interested in doing something on the Cubs, they should contact me at the Barroom Network on X and just send me a direct message. My DMs are totally open.
Okay, that's wonderful. The Cubs are certainly, after a slow start in Texas to open the season, they had a 3-game sweep against the lowly Colorado Rockies, and this is a very a year that I think a lot of expectations are there with the Cubs, and obviously, I do remember that you guys I know you have a White Sox specific show.
Mm-hmm.
With Joe Mandel, who is who was also a co-producer on your network, and I do remember not having a Cubs show, and I was maybe guessing that your followers or a lot of your hosts are maybe more of a diehard White Sox fan. So if you're interested in breaking into the media or have your own podcast or live stream shows, regardless of who you are, and if you love baseball and the Cubs, I highly recommend reaching out to Aldo Gandia on his Twitter handle, as you can see there. And you could also subscribe to his channel, as you can see the scrolling here, to the Barroom Network on YouTube. There's the youtube.com/at the Barroom Network. So make sure to subscribe and reach out to Aldo if you want to start your career in sports media in any shape or platform. All right, Aldo, let's begin our conversation. Obviously, the Chicago Bears is the main thing that drives your audience. You have a very good platform. You talk football with a variety of guests, mainly with former Bears, scouting director Greg Gabriel. Obviously, he brings a lot of passion and also, to a degree, controversy, both on your channel and also mostly
Yes.
on Twitter. But obviously, the Bears is what drives your audience and what keeps the demand and interest. So I want to start off by asking this question. I've had a lot of great guests in the last couple of weeks regarding the Chicago Bears and their off season. Certainly, we know that Justin Fields versus Caleb Willams stands have been somewhat of a ugly, a battle, which obviously ended with the Justin Fields finally being traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, probably around late February or early March, somewhere along that time period. So I want to ask you, how would you remember Justin Fields' time in Chicago, given that, he may not have been given the, the support system that, Caleb Willams is more than likely going to get, and that, the Chicago Bears history of drafting and developing quarterbacks on not on the same even timeline with the head coach and the general manager, etc. How would you remember the Justin Fields era in Chicago?
Well, I'm going to remember it as a failure on both parts. That's the organization and on Justin himself. The organization has, though, the biggest responsibility in the failure. And Justin Fields was kind of an emblem of how Chicago Bears have been treated by the Chicago Bears organization over the years. They simply did not provide the resources available around Justin. It's for him to succeed. And the same could be said about Mitch Trubisky. The same could be said about Jay Cutler, and on and on. The legacy of this football team has always been the running game and the defense. And it seems like they have had an aversion to trying to improve the quarterback's play. And developing a quarterback is not just about having him learn how to take the snap under center, taking a 3, 5, or 7-step drop, learning all the pass routes, being a leader in the locker room. That's a part of it. But the other part of developing a quarterback is to give him an offensive line that will allow him to do the things that are being instructed in the classroom, and give him the skill players at wide receiver and running back and tight end that will also allow him success in those areas of the offense. So the organization failed him, and it seems like right at the time that they were ready to finally support him, they traded him, and it's unfair to him because I really do believe he should have had this 4th year of his contract to fulfill his promise. But at the same time, I understand from an organizational standpoint that he didn't do as well on his own. There were obvious errors when he was the quarterback. There were players open that he didn't get the ball rid of in time. He held the ball too long. Of the 50 or so sacks he would average per season, half of them might have been on him because he held the ball too long or failed to see an open receiver wide open. There were other errors in his game. But at the same time, the reason I wanted to give him another shot was because I saw progression, and I think that we'll see that progression perhaps continue in Pittsburgh under Mike Tomlin and the really very good supporting cast the Steelers have for Justin Fields. The only thing he's got to do is beat out Russell Wilson, of course, for that starting job.
Which, by the way, shouldn't be all that difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with the kind of a compensation that the Bears got for only 6th round from the Pittsburgh Steelers, which obviously is contingent upon him getting at least more than half of a snap this upcoming year, which turns into a 4th round pick? I know a lot of the NFL so-called GMs out there recently said that the Bears, botched it and stuff like that. Do you feel like that's just, I don't know, people wanting to pour onto the Bears poor history, or is there some sort of a validity into what they're saying?
I think that there is some validity to this. I appreciate what Ryan Poles did for Justin Fields, but first and foremost, I think his obligation is to the organization to get the absolute best return on investment, which was Justin Fields in that trade. And so when he went to the combine and he announced we're going to try to do well by Justin, that was a pretty clear signal that they were going to trade Justin Fields. And so teams just waited. And what was particularly unlucky for the Chicago Bears is that this upcoming draft is rich with quarterbacks. We could see as many as 6 taken in the 1st round. It was also rich in free agent quarterbacks. And Russell Wilson, who we mentioned before, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a salary of $1.9 million or something like that, because the Broncos are going to pick up 95% or more of his salary. And so that made the market even tougher for Ryan Poles. So from a strategic standpoint, he didn't do himself any favors, him being Ryan Poles, do himself any favors to try to get the best return on investment. I do understand that he's trying to do good for a player who has devoted himself without hesitation to the Chicago Bears for 3 seasons, and that perhaps looks good in the eyes of future free agents and so forth. But I don't think that that should have been his number one priority. When it comes to business, and you have to have some type of passion. Some might call it ruthlessness, but I don't.
Yeah.
He would have ended up on an NFL team and would have been a free agent in a year and could have written his own ticket to whatever team he wanted. And so that should have been first and foremost the highest priorities, to try to get the true value for Justin Fields, which in my mind was at the very least a 3rd round draft pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of weird that some of the media members were kind of hyping. I remember Field Yates and Mel Kiper, I believe, they were saying they could get the 8th overall pick for Justin Fields, which was somewhat preposterous. And
Yes.
obviously, yeah, and obviously, we're going to get to this question to put a bow into the Justin Fields era. Um, as somebody who's worked in media, although for a long, long time, obviously the Justin Fields stand versus Caleb Willams stand really, really got out of control. It was really, really ugly throughout the entire off season. So the whole social media aspect, as well as the media members, both locally and nationally, kind of jumped in almost every day, every week to try and stoke up fire and emotions amongst the Bears fans, if you will. From your expert and from your past experience, why did it really got so ugly, and who do you kind of put a blame on this mess?
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's a huge huge issue that involves many parts. And so, for instance, the number one story and number two story of the 2024 offseason is the future of Justin Fields, which has now been resolved. He's gone to Pittsburgh, and where Caleb Willams is going. Are the Chicago Bears going to trade out of the number one position and not, were they going to keep Justin Fields, or were they going to trade the number one pick for another quarterback or for a player? Or trade that pick for more draft assets. That was the number one story. So obviously, with that being such a hot story, the national media, the local media, and social media took to that very passionately. And unfortunately, what we have seen, particularly in social media, but some in the professional media, is a hostility towards conversations and debates. And so it's gotten really, really ugly in what is called Bears Twitter, where we've seen some vicious attacks against the people and not the ideas that people represent. And that's always the biggest problem when you get to whatever topic you're talking about, politics, sports, a movie, and so forth. When you start attacking the person who delivered an opinion, then things are going to get out of hand. It's going to go back and forth, and it's going to get really, really ugly. So I always keep in mind when I use social media, and I haven't done this for my entire career, but as I get older, I realize that the best way to interact with people and engage with people is to challenge the idea if I disagree with it, but also applaud ideas that are posted so that you have a public face of being, fair-minded. I agree with you on this, but I disagree with you on that, because we all can find disagreements on certain things. So a little bit... I'm glad that I've been staying out of those dirty debates as well, and I'm also a little saddened that some close friends of mine who are on social media have kind of engaged in that toxic atmosphere. As for the national media, I think that the professionalism that I grew up with, I mentioned that I would run over to get to all the newspapers in town, and then I worked at CBS, the O&O and so forth. So I have a certain affinity for the old journalism broadcast rules and how to act with certain decorum. And I understand that some radio shows, TV shows, and so forth aren't journalistically based. It's opinion based, and so you want to be big and bold so that your voice is heard through the clutter. But I also do think that there has to be a certain balance when you do certain things. And so I'll give you an example of that. Danny Parkins, who is a reporter who I love to listen to the Parkins and Spiegel show on 670. I really do. And again, I don't agree with everything they say, but I agree with a lot of it, and everything that they present, in my opinion, is very entertaining and worth the time that I invest into that show. But when Danny Parkins, when Justin Fields was still on the team and Danny Parkins posted a picture of Caleb Willams' jersey, number 13, I thought that was disrespectful. It was disrespectful to Justin Fields primarily. He's the guy that's gone out there the last 3 years and put his health on the line. Yes, it's his decision, but as fans and as reporters, we should respect the fact that they do that. They do what we as fans are incapable of doing. And so to post that picture to me was a bad sign of respect for a player. Again, Mr. Parkins can do whatever he likes, post whatever he wants, but I have a right to disagree with anything that's posted by a professional journalist.
Mm-hmm. I think you was. I think you said it very, very eloquently.
Thank you.
The level of the desperation that are us fans in Chicago, or even those like me living in outside of Chicago, really, really wanted to see Justin succeed. I think between Trubisky and Fields, obviously the Bears organization as a whole, and I've said this on social media many, many times, that they deserve a lot more blame. They should be held more accountable for how they've botched the whole thing in terms of developing, and they've really are the reasons why they've kind of had a split fan base that really went out of their way to go against each other. And obviously the media members who continue to make fun of the Bears organization, with the Sid Luckman analogy and all that other stuff every single year.
Yeah.
And then people like RG3, taking shots at the Bears organization that that we don't have enough weapons for him, and that the Washington is a better spot. Cindy Afroin from the NFL Network, who's the analytics person, making crazy assumptions about the Bears drafting Jaden Daniels of LSU over Caleb Willams, because Caleb would be more successful being reunited with Cliff Kingsbury, who was apparently I think he was a quarterbacks coach for USC last year.
That's correct.
But just because of that, Caleb would be in a much better place to succeed. And certainly the perception of the Bears organization, for the most part, has not been very, very well received locally and also on the national level. So they have obviously no one to blame but themselves. But so far, what they've done off season, even if it's, a business decision had to be made on Justin Fields, what they have done the last couple of years under Ryan Poles have to be very, very encouraging. And, obviously setting up a rookie quarterback drafted in the first round, first overall, I should say, historically has not been very good. You could go back to, Troy Aikman, Peyton Manning, and then going backwards recently, Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, David Carr, just to name a few. Those taken first overall, they really, really never got the supporting cast, the receivers, the protections in their first year. And it usually takes about 2 to 3 years to finally, get to, where they are. So at least the Bears have, are making probably at least Poles is so determined to end the Bears' horrid streaks at quarterback. He mentioned that clearly on the Pat McAfee show. I believe he was on last week. Yeah. So it is imperative for the Chicago Bears to change their narrative, and that the fans are certainly fed up, and they're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt, them as in the Bears organization. So as good as they look on paper, it's all about the results, and we have to see what kind of team that they have on the field this upcoming season once the season kicks off in September. So we know that it's going to be Caleb Willams that's going to be drafted number 1 overall. And for you, Aldo, what is your realistic expectations for Caleb, whether it's the numbers or, what kind of things you want to see from him this upcoming year?
Yeah, I hold the belief that part of the reason that the Texans' rookie quarterback last year, now C.J. Stroud,
yes,
had such success in his rookie season was because he was, like Brock Purdy, the 7th round final pick of the draft, has had success with San Francisco because they are so good at timing. Playing on time, dropping back, 3rd foot, plant it, release the ball. 5-step drop, same thing on that 5th step, drop that back foot, and throw the ball. 7-step drop, the same thing. They're not holding the ball for a long time. Everything is on time the way the coordinators have designed the offense. Those guys are really good. My concern with Caleb Williams is that he really is a duplicate of Justin Fields. I do believe that he has better on-field vision, but I do think that he holds the ball quite a bit, and he tries to make big plays. I know with USC last year, it was a really bad defense that they had, and they had a terrible offensive line, so he was running for his life and running with the score against him, and so that led to a lot of mistakes on his part to be Superman. But if you look at the tape closely, Caleb is not as proficient as CJ Stroud in that timing football game. He's good at it, but he's not nearly as good as CJ Stroud. So because of that, it's going to take some very clever play making, play design, and play calling during a football game for Caleb to have success, to hide those deficiencies that he currently has, but hopefully will correct as the season goes on. The other big thing is the defense, and there's been a lot of conversation on what the team should do with the number 9 overall pick. I hate to say this, is they need to add another pass rusher, because that defense can help Caleb Williams as much as wide receivers in a good offensive line. They can give him a half field to work with, because a pass rush will force the opposing team's quarterback to throw interceptions, create fumbles, and so forth. And so just like Jim McMahon had in 1985, the last time we won a Super Bowl, he will have half fields to work with if they can take that defense from the B+ level at the end of the season and get it up to A level, maybe even A+. So I think, to answer your question, I believe that Caleb can have a very successful playoff caliber year this year if the coaching is suits where he is at, and they're not asking him to do things that he's not ready to do, and that the defense gives him half fields to work with.
And I agree. Having watched CJ Stroud have such a success last year certainly raised the bar. And I don't want, I think, the Bears fans to expect him to be just like CJ Stroud from day one as well. I know coaching really, really matters, especially in the NFL. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which I'm sure you've had a lot of debate on your show throughout this offseason. Is Matt Eberflus still the right coach? And I've had this question, and I've asked this many, many times. I've actually started writing on beargoggleson.com as a part of the fan-sided network, since 2022. Mm-hmm. And I wrote this article about Matt Eberflus's issues, as great of an offseason that the Bears seems to be having. I have a lot of issues with Matt Eberflus, especially, him blowing 3 games, with the lead in the fourth quarter, thanks to conservative offensive play calling, conservative defense on a soft zone coverage. Instead of a 7-10, we could have easily been 10-7. And then we might not have had this conversation about replacing Justin Fields, or if Matt Eberflus is the right coach. And how can anybody forget about the Alan Williams and the David Walker coaching fiasco, where the FBI was involved and all that kind of nonsense? That's obviously all on Matt Eberflus, because he's the one who hired those the coaches in the first place. So obviously we could go on and on about the criticism of Matt Eberflus, and I'm sure you have plenty on him as well. Do you feel he is still the right coach, or do you feel like the Bears are going to make a same mistake with the pairing of a lame duck coach and Caleb Willams, just like they've done in the past?
Well, that's a great question, and one that we have talked a lot about on our network. I was never excited about the Matt Eberflus hire to begin with. Yeah. I know he had a lot of success as a defensive coordinator, and once he started calling plays after the departure of Williams, he had success here in Chicago calling plays. So there's no arguing that he is a quality defensive play caller and designer. But the thing is can he manage an entire team? Can he galvanize the offense to get out of that tunnel and score consistently and perform consistently? Is he an innovator? He certainly isn't on offense. We haven't seen anything innovative on offense. So, and now he's brought in his second offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, who comes with a good reputation for innovating and using two tight end formations and relying on the run. So there's the potential there that this coaching staff is going to be much more improved than it was last season or the first two seasons under Eberflus. But I still have questions about Matt Eberflus. Just as an exercise, I went back and looked at Super Bowl head coaches for the last 10 years, and all of the names, were guys who you consider Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame coaches, like Bill Belichick going to the Super Bowl multiple times, Andy Reid multiple times, and on and on. And every once in a while, you get your outlier in there who makes it to the Super Bowl once, like Lovie Smith did and never returned, and some other coaches like that. But if you want, what Ryan Post is trying to build here is sustainable success, and that means playoff appearances year after year after year with a shot of going to the Super Bowl. Is Matt Eberflus that guy? I don't know. I hope so. As a fan, I want to say yes. I want desperately to say yes. But as a dispassionate observer, I'm afraid that he might not be. I haven't seen all of the signs there that tell me with any confidence that he is going to be a Hall of Fame quality head coach. We'll see.
Yeah, I called in the radio shows post game on both 670 The Score and ESPN Chicago, which is now the flagship home of the Bears, plenty of times last year, and I voiced my displeasure on Eberflus's conservativeness and his penchant for blaming execution after a loss in a post-game conferences, which really drove me crazy because you're the head coach and your coaching staff are the ones who are supposed to make sure that the execution is being done and it is flawless. And for you to throw things under the bus, throw the players under the bus is completely unacceptable and just a horrible leadership on his part, as well as coaches. Of course, it makes sense when you have people like Alan Williams and David Walker getting fired for violating human resources rules. So, and whenever you listen to Matt Eberflus talk on a post-game conference or even on a weekly show with ESPN Chicago, he sounded so awkward and uncomfortable and really offered nothing much clarity to the questions, whether he was being asked by the radio show host or even the beat reporters. So I just hope that Matt Eberflus learned something from those experiences last year. I think it's telling that Ryan Poles led the search for the new offensive coordinator, which allowed them to garner Shane Waldron, which is a huge coup, considering the head coaching status of Matt Eberflus. Who knows? Maybe there's a agreement in place that Waldron will be promoted if Eberflus starts off the season 0-4 again this upcoming year, much like they did with last year. Showing no sign of learning or growth and improvement, not just from the players themselves, but the coaching staff from within. So it's an interesting season for Eberflus. And,
sorry for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
I think one of the things that Kevin Warren has brought to the organization is he wants to change the image and the brand of the Chicago Bears. And so that's part of the reason we have seen some administrative changes over at Halas Hall. Some positions have been created, some people have been moved around and so forth. But I also believe that what you are going to see it's no fluke that Matt Eberflus has changed his visual look this season, that he's got the beard, he's got the hair. Yeah. He says that it's his wife and so forth. I have a feeling that the feedback that he was given by Warren and Poles is you have to do a better job in presenting yourself to Chicago Bears, as presenting yourself as someone who is different than other head coaches, so that you're not the plain looking guy who, sells insurance. You're a head coach with innovative ideas and so forth. So once he starts into that pattern of doing regular press conferences, as he will do during OTAs and of course during the regular season, let's look to see if Eberflus is presenting himself in a much more charismatic maybe isn't the right word, but dynamic manner, because I believe that Warren is behind that. There's been talk that a lot of coaches and some personnel at the Chicago Bears organization are going through media training. If you recall last year, Stephen, there were times where Eberflus was just dying up there at the podium.
Yes.
Like after the Allen Williams fiasco and after the other offensive coach, the running backs coach, was fired midseason, and he just did not know how to stop the interview. He did not know how to say, this is the last question I'll answer about it. This is an internal matter. It's a health matter for Coach Williams. Now let's talk about this upcoming game. But he would just go on and on and on and allow the media to just continue to fire questions. That's media training 101. I learned that when I was 19 years old, working as a cameraman for a media training course for Amoco Oil employees. That's what they taught the very first day. This is how you manipulate the media to get your message out. And he was just terrible at it. So he's got to do a much better job.
Yeah, he looked like he was auditioning to be the next contestant for the Golden Bachelor, more so. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
and obviously, I think you bring up a good point. He was just a deer in the headlight, and obviously the Bears sucked to start the season 0-4, 1-8, and certainly it was easy for him to be like a target for angry fans and the beat reporters. But he can change his attitude and outside appearance. It's what's inside that really counts. So let's hope that maybe this is a sign that he's really loosened up, that maybe he's got an assurances to get at least 2 more years to work with Caleb Willams. So we'll see. Even if you get assurances from polls, if you're not as good as last year, and if we're still seeing the same old crap from last year, and you're not showing enough growth as a head coach, then you're probably good as gone, no matter what what's your relationship with Ryan Poles. My guest tonight is from the Barroom Network in Chicago, the founder, host, and also producer extraordinaire, Mr. Aldo Gandia. So Aldo, the main question now for the Chicago Bears is basically what to do with their 9th overall pick. And, I think we know that it's first overall, Caleb Willams. People can, scream and shout all about his crying, painting nails, and his phone being pink and all that nonsense shit now to pick now. But, the question now is 9th overall pick. Eberflus has said that they can get another blue chip player at their own 9th pick. I don't think there's never going to be another opportunity for the Bears to be picking top 10, two picks in the top 10, because next time if that happens, probably they had a shitty season and probably everybody's gone, including Ryan Poles. So my question is, where are you right now? On the scenario for the Bears at 9th pick? Do you stay, or do you at least listen to the trade offers if it's a right one?
Yeah, they're in the enviable position having the 1st and 9th picks of this draft, but they are in the unenviable position of only having 4 draft picks. And so clearly you have to consider trading out of number 9 so that you can add either a late 1st round pick or multiple day 2 picks, 2nd and 3rd rounds, and maybe even get a late round pick for day 3. That has to be considered. But I am of the opinion that right now, if one of the top 9-10 players drops to you, guys that you and your scouting department are saying, yes, if this guy's available at 9, we grab him. Like a Rome Odunze. He's kind of on that borderline. If you consider him to be the number 3 rated wide receiver, and some people have him at number 1, some people have him at number 2, some people have Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 3, but whatever it is, if one of those 3 wide receivers is available at 9, I think you have to make that move as opposed to picking up another second rounder. So what are you going to get at second round? Xavier Legette? Good wide receiver, there's no doubt, but doesn't have the superstar potential of those 3 receivers. The other key thing, of course, is I spoke earlier about defense and how important that is. And so if the best pass rusher in this draft, I believe, is Dallas Turner. And so if he's available at 9, I think you have to pick him because he would be such a great compliment for Montez Sweat, who is the bigger, stronger, run-stopping defensive line who can also disrupt quarterbacks to that speed pass rusher who can get to the quarterback on passing situations in under 2 seconds and at least disrupt the throw. That would be huge for this defense. Or the third option for me is to consider one of the top offensive linemen. The offensive lineman that I like the best, that's a better fit for this Chicago Bears offensive line as it stands now, is Troy Fontenot out of Washington. Now, he's somebody that could be available after 9, who could be available at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But the reason I like him so much for this Chicago Bears group is because he played left tackle at Washington, but also he can play the left guard position and move over to the right side, play right tackle or right guard if you need. So let's say Braxton Jones looks great in camp. Darnell Wright looks great in camp. You got those 2 tackles playing well, but something happens with the guards. Tevin Jenkins, the guy Nate
Davis, yeah.
Thank you. If something happens with them, you can move Fontenot in there, and then it's all over. He inherits that position for the rest of his career. But if you're having trouble at any one of the tackle positions, although I doubt you'll see any problems with Darnell Wright, but if you do with Braxton Jones, then Fontenot can move out to the left tackle and at the very least be a bridge tackle to the next year's acquisition of that player. And the final point about Troy Fontenot is that what I love is his meanness. He will fit in so well with Tevin Jenkins and just creating a mean offensive line, which is, to me, the staple of Chicago Bears offensive lines, and we haven't seen anything like that consistently. So I'm leaning towards keeping the number 9 pick if one of those superstars are available, or trading back and getting as many assets as you can.
Yeah, I think that the upgrading the left tackle position might be higher on Ryan Poles' priority list than people give them credit for, because obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Poles is determined to break the Bears' horrid cycle of quarterbacks, and what better way to do so by drafting a left tackle that you can protect Caleb Willams, long term, and keep his pocket clean as long as possible, because we saw what happened with his time at USC. He was always dancing around trying to make plays, but in the NFL, you can't do that, all the time. So he has to certainly play within the confines and make sure that the pass protection is there. And, Braxton Jones, as great of a player he has been for a guy who was drafted 5th, I can always look to Jamarcus Webb and Charles Leno, that the Bears always seems to settle for, I don't want to say bargain bin left tackles, because they were drafted so low, even Jones himself. But obviously, if you look at the, Jamarcus Webb and Charles Leno, they were never really the long-term solution at left tackle. And one thing people need to remember, Ryan Poles was a college tackle himself at Boston College, playing with Matt Ryan, the former NFL quarterback with the Falcons and the Colts, if you all remember. So I think he knows the importance of left tackle, getting a quarterback and also the left tackle, which I think you can make the argument that it's the second most important position in football. In one draft, certainly, may not well be received for those who wanted to see, Rome Odunze or other receiver be taken, or Troy Fontenot, as you mentioned, from Washington, or even maybe Penn State's Olu Fashanu, who happens to be a high school teammate of Caleb Willams in Washington, D.C.'s Gonzaga Academy. Those are certainly the names that the Bears are linked to. I know Albert Breer posted something last night about the dinner Caleb Williams had, and they also had, Guyton, the tackle from Oklahoma State. That is also considered to be a very, very high pick right there. It's a bit of a stretch to consider Tyler Guyton, a guy, that high in the draft. But it's actually interesting that the Bears are looking at the offensive tackle. They've already had Dallas Turner visit, and according to David Kaplan of ESPN, they said that he impressed the hell out of the Chicago Bears. So it will be very, very interesting to see, what the Bears are going to do with their 9th overall pick. And again, the top 8 is pretty much contingent upon what happens with the 8th pick, the top 8 picks. Yeah. I think, after Caleb, that's when the real draft begins, pretty much. Washington at number 2, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Those are probably one of the picks. The New England's probably going to move out because they're not exactly a quarterback away from becoming going back to the contender. They have a lot to pick up and start rebuilding again post Bill Belichick era. Los Angeles, Chargers, they could definitely use a wide receiver after, trading Keenan Allen to the Bears and losing Mike Williams, as are the Giants. Giants are either a receiver or a quarterback. And you have the Vikings. If you look at the Vikings, you have the 11th and 23rd picks. They are definitely going to move up and try and get, at least either Drake May or at worst, J.J. McCarthy, to at least sit him for an entire year behind Sam Darnold. So, if the board falls, 4 quarterbacks, 3 receivers and a tackle, maybe Joe Alt going to Tennessee, and then you have the Bears at 9. That's like you said, it's a pretty envious position because you're going to have teams desperate to move up to either get a tackle, a receiver, or even a quarterback, whoever's available around that time. The Bears, after the 9th pick, they have the 75th pick. So that's a huge, huge gap right there. You have like 66, 67 picks in between. So it's kind of, hard for me to really, really envision the Bears waiting that long to make that next pick. Or maybe they're comfortable because, they used the 2nd and 4th round pick on, Sweat and Allen. So that counts as the 2024 draft class, perhaps. And then in 2025, they have plenty of picks available next year. And if Ian Cunningham gets hired, you get the 3rd round pick as a, NFL minority hiring, compensatory picks as well. So maybe you're already looking at that and say, 2025's draft is a much better than this year. So I can definitely, be content with only 4 picks, or maybe they'll trade the 75 pick and then trade down a little bit further down and get more extra 4th or 5th rounder picks and so forth. So, yes,
Stephen, if I can add a thought there, I think that you got to look at this number 9 overall pick as your 2nd round pick. I mean, it's not the 33rd or 34th or 35th or even the last pick of the 2nd round, which is the 64th. It's the 9th pick. And so you are, if you change your paradigm, you are absolutely getting the very best 2nd round pick in the entire draft because he's at number 9. So I prefer to look at it that way. And as for trading back for day 3 picks, we got a lot of day 3 picks already on the team. I want the highest quality. Next season, as you said, Stephen, correctly, is next year's draft is supposed to be deeper because this year's draft, we saw a lot of players go back to college and exercise the extra year they had because of COVID. So next year, as well, yes, exactly. So I think next year, load up on, we've loaded up on picks for next year. We have, I think, 9 9 already next season. If we just go with the 4 this year, I'll be satisfied, as long as it's 4 guys who, at least 3 of them, are starting in 2024, and the 4th guy is a regular contributor. And just as a quick aside, this new kickoff rule is going to change the type of players you're going to need on the team. You're going to need more, maybe a speedier running back to take advantage of the rules. You're going to need tight ends and linebackers and wide receivers who can block very, very efficiently, because they're going to be on one-on-one blocks on a wide open field. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Bears attack that via the draft and free agency the rest of the season.
Well, that's a great thought. I didn't look at it that way. The 9th pick, not a first round, but instead of being like a second round pick of sorts. So that's a good way of looking at it. True. We just keep looking at the numbers and the location. So that's a good idea there as well. How far do you think that the Bears, if you're the GM, how far will you be willing to trade down? Like in the teens, like 15th as the maximum?
Yeah, if all of those players that I mentioned earlier are gone, I would. I wouldn't want it to be much below the 12th pick, the Denver Broncos pick, because there's been speculation the Broncos might want to move up to pick up, J.J. McCarthy, or now a lot of people are pointing at Bo Nix entering the first round, and they may want to secure that pick by moving up to 9. I feel like if you're going to move down, I wouldn't want it to be much. I certainly wouldn't want it to be in the 20s. I'd like to be somewhere in the 10s or teens. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, I'm going to end our conversation on this note. We know Matt Eberflus is a defensive guy. 4-3 defense, certainly Tampa 2. 3 technique defense is obviously the key to that defense. We all know back in the day with Lovie Smith, Tommy Harris, and Tank Johnson were, 2 guys who were very, very good at their game before injuries robbed Tommy Harris, and off the field problems, took away Tank's career. Do you think that the Bears are not content with what they have in Zach Pickens and Gervon Dexter? Justin Jones left the team as a free agent.
Right.
They could be maybe trading down a few spots to get, say, Byron Murphy or Jazir Newton of Illinois as a 3 tackle, because I know Eberflus is probably big on, from the pressure from the inside, maybe more so from the outside.
Right. Yeah, and we could talk about another hour about that, because as you said about the left tackle, I've actually been on a mini crusade for the last probably 8 years, saying that the interior of the offensive line is much more valuable now, because offenses have caught up with ways to neutralize the outside pass rushers. And primarily, that's just get rid of the ball quickly. They don't have time to get to you. Get rid of the ball quickly. And so the left tackle is always going to be a prime pick, because that's your most athletic offensive lineman. He's got the longest arms. He can move his feet the fastest. You're protecting the blind side. But from a value standpoint, you can get away with a 5th round draft pick like Braxton Jones at left tackle, but you can't get away with a 5th round interior offensive lineman unless he's got years of experience in the league. But to answer your question, now, we're seeing much more pass rushers come up the middle because they're getting rid of the ball quickly. So you're absolutely right. Drafting somebody like a Newton could be a huge pickup for the Chicago Bears. It should be stressed much more often by the Chicago media that the 3 tech position is still a huge question mark. I think Gervon Dexter is going to grow into the position. He's going to improve dramatically, but you want a rotation in there. So picking up a young guy would be good. My guess, though, is that there's going to be a 3 tech, and I haven't looked at who's available in free agency recently, but there's probably a 3 tech in there, a la a Justin Jones, who can move into that backup 3 tech position. And I think that's how the Bears will likely address it this season, and then attack it in the next draft if it becomes a priority.
Certainly, there's going to be more cuts being made by the teams post June 1. Veterans that will likely collect a huge chunk of bonuses that will eat up the cap and so forth. So it will be very, very interesting to see, even after the draft, how aggressive the Bears will be in terms of adding players. They did add Yannick Ngakoue last year, late in the prior to the season. So chances are those types of move is something maybe Ryan Poles is still thinking about. Looking for the players to be cut, and maybe the draft in April will kind of give us an answer as to what the Bears are still going to be looking in the post June 1, veteran cuts that will likely take place before the season begins. Well, Aldo, as always, it's been a pleasure talking with you. It's so nice to see you again. It's kind of weird because it was me and Ken talking, and then whenever the show was over, we were only get to talk after the show was over for a brief period of time. So it's actually very, very nice change to speak with you on this level for about an hour or so. So I really appreciate it. I know you're still kind of getting over the hump with your allergies and stuff like that. So I hope you do very, very well, and we look forward to having you on again, hopefully before the season begins, and maybe have a more discussion and also have another guest to kind of bounce back and forth. I know we were supposed to have another guest tonight, but it wasn't, the right time for that guest, but hopefully he will join us again next time. Please make sure to subscribe, Aldo's YouTube channel, as you see scrolling at the bottom, youtube.com at Barroom Network. It is based out of Chicago. If you're a Bears fan or a Chicago sports fan in general, this is a channel to follow. And if you're a Cub fan wanting to break into the media industry, please make sure to reach out to Aldo via Twitter DM or on the channel, because they are looking to start a new Cubs channel or show. We don't know the dates and time yet, but reach out to Aldo and make sure that you present yourself professionally, and Aldo will give you the platform and the opportunity that you're looking for, just like he gave us, both Ken and I, the opportunity a couple of years ago. Well, Aldo, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and hope to see you again down the road.
Thank you, Stephen. I had a fun time. I can't wait to come back.
Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the Double A Team here on YouTube and also on X. Have a wonderful week, everybody.